everyone? We're back. It's another great episode on CRM Improv. I'm your host, as always, Mickey Baines. I'm excited for today. I have a wonderful guest. Cooper Jones is with me. Cooper is the co-founder and CEO of RahRah. He began his career as a consultant with Accenture, consulted there for a while, and then that was, I guess, your first professional job after graduating from Oklahoma State University. And then after leaving Accenture, you founded RahRah with your co-founder, Sam Allen. RahRah, in case you don't know, was founded to break down barriers, to make it easier for students to find their way around campus and discover resources to make their experience more enjoyable. RahRah provides colleges and universities the campus experience that students expect with the resources they need to be successful. Simply put, RahRah builds communities. How was that?
That couldn't have been better. I couldn't say it better myself. Thank you so much.
I'm thinking I should get into marketing. I'm getting pretty good at this.
Hey, CRM is that close to it, right? So,
so Cooper, thank you for joining me. I'm really excited to have you here. Before this season, when we've on the show, we've not really had folks from vendors of technology in higher ed. We've only talked about how to use CRM. We've had other practitioners, people in higher ed, but this season we're branching out because really I thought it's really time we need to get into the weeds. While this show might focus on CRM, there's so many other tools out there that schools are using to improve their experience, to improve their students' experience, to better understand that experience. And all of those plug in and connect with each other to then somehow provide this overall picture. And as we've talked over the last several months, getting to see RahRah in action and seeing how it's what its power is, I wanted to have you on to talk a little bit about the product, but really also to talk about student engagement. When we think about student engagement, when I'm talking with clients, prospective clients, talking on the show, even a lot of times, we tend to narrow in on the standard, I use air quotes here, standard channels for engagement: email, SMS, physical mail, telephony, or physical walk-ins for appointments and things. We think about that, but and we might think about a student portal. But when we say a student portal, we mean like this product that's sometimes provided by an SaaS provider, which is what I would call a real portal, in that it's just meant to be a place to port you other places and not really do anything to enhance an experience. When you think about using your tool to help, or any tool for that matter, to build out that student experience, what does that mean to you, and how do you accomplish that in your world?
Yeah, it's a great question and a great point. And, for us, it comes down to a simple kind of 1-2 punch premise, which is discovery and access. When we think about the current offerings that are available, whether those be SIS portals or they be the CRM itself, both very powerful. Both have a job that they do very, very well on a day-to-day basis for many. The challenge is that the companies that provide those, while frankly bigger and stronger than us because they've been around for a lot longer, they're not really experienced, nor do they historically prioritize that front-end mobile experience. And we see that students, like the rest of us, are consumers at the end of the day. Why is it that we all use ZocDoc and Grubhub and Netflix so often? Well, the reality is because it is a premise of discovery and access. I want Indian food, I'm going to find Indian food, discovery and access. I need a dentist, I'm going to find and access that dentist. I want the new season of Yellowstone to come out or whatever it may be. Well, I'm going to find it on there. And so it's discovery and access, and that user experience really is wash, rinse, repeat at scale. And when we think about that, compared to what a CRM does or what a portal does from a front-end perspective, all it is words on a page. CRMs are extremely powerful from a workflow perspective, but the only thing that the student is receiving, or the output that the student is getting, is an email that has words on a page about a new resource, about a reminder, about a new service. It's a website that only has those. It's a notification. It's a text. Our idea was, that's great, and we can integrate with those, but let's actually put that career service center in the students' hands. Let's put the people that work at that center in their hands. Let's put the services that they provide in their hands and do that again for every single corner of campus. And so when we think about engagement, I think it's a lot more holistic and in a way transactional. I don't mean that from a financial perspective. I just mean that from a day-to-day activity perspective for every single student. And when you think about engagement, that really starts to change the definition from that lens. Traditionally, as you said, it's those mediums, but it's also joining a club or going to an event. And those are great. And they do increase the odds of graduation. They do increase and address student success. But the reality is that today's student isn't doing that all that often. And those that are only doing that once or twice a month. They're students that they're commuting 20 minutes away. They don't have time to join the future business leaders of America. They just need to get home to their kids. And before they get home to their kids, they have to figure out what their job is going to be. They have to figure out, can they pick something up from the food bank? Those are moments of engagement and delight that we really want to try to consumerize for every single student.
So, how do you do that?
Well, it took a while. I'll say that. Wasn't necessarily easy. When we started out, we saw that there was a few things that companies that served the higher ed space before us kind of made mistakes on. One of those is the failure to recognize the complexity and nuances of higher ed as an industry, but also from an institution to institution perspective. A lot of companies have had great ideas and they have a mission that is worthwhile in pursuing. But the natural inclination, when you look at and realize that higher ed is a tough market to break into, to earn the trust of, is to quote unquote move fast and break things. That may work in fintech or in martech or whatever it may be. It unfortunately doesn't work in ed tech. I'd be lying if I said I wish it didn't.
Yeah.
I do, but it just doesn't. And I probably can speak for my investors and say that they wish that as well. But the fact is that you have to take your time to earn the trust of this market. And so many startups want to build something quickly so that they can sell quickly. And by doing so, there ends up being a discrepancy between the promises made and the promises kept for those early adopters. And so we saw how Instructure started 10 years ago when they disrupted the learning management system space with Canvas. We saw how Workday and Oracle are disrupting the student system space from legacy to cloud. And it all came down to a design partner program. And so for us, we spent the first 3 years of our existence not necessarily focusing on marketing or on revenue or on sales, but building an undeniably valuable product. And during that time, there were two things that we realized needed to be at the highest level of priority behind, I should say, the actual student experience, what students were going to do every single day. That would be the functionality. Those two things are the ability to integrate at an enterprise level, as well as the ability to have a product provided to all these corners campuses that was fairly flexible. Change management can make or break some incredible software tools, and it's not necessarily the tool's fault, it's the implementation and the adoption of it. And so our disposition when building RahRah was to look at Instagram. There's a reason that the help page is hard to find when you're using that app. It's because it's easy to use, it's intuitive to use. And so we wanted to make sure that RahRah could say the same for its product, both on the front end as well as on the administrative side.
You said a lot of great words that I'm going to hang on to. You mentioned integration, which is a scary word, a word that's in front of a thick, dark curtain that no one knows what is behind it unless you build integrations yourself. And then you also mentioned change management and you mentioned adoption. And in my lens is CRM, and they don't have that written on my glasses, but that's the lens I see the world. And one of the things I think of when I think of a tool like RahRah is integration, because I know there's going to be a lot of data in there. You're providing an experience. I need that information about an experience so I can understand the experience across campus and other users on campus. And I also know that digital experiences that you have require adoption to be successful, and having an adoption, and in this world, student and staff, adoption is a hard thing to do because you have to have change management involved, because you can't just take this experience you have today without any technology, add the technology and say it's the same experience. Is not. There's a transformation that occurs with that. And so hearing that type of approach and thinking about it really is one of the things that when we first met and talked resonated with me, because as I'm learning about any tool, that's what I'm thinking about. How do I get it connected to other systems so other users of other tools can understand it? And how do we get it adopted for students and staff so that people are using it?
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's really important.
it's really important. And you have to face the fact that the associate coordinator of residence life or of student life, or really any factor, even all the way up to the director level, they didn't get into higher ed so that they could become a CRM wizard. They got into higher
What?
ed. So,
You're crushing my world.
no offense to those CRM wizards, because again, they're extremely powerful and we rely upon them, we integrate with them. But those are really cumbersome systems to learn, and that's the way that they're designed, which is why they are so powerful. And so it's not a knock when I say that, but when someone is introduced to RahRah during an implementation, we can visibly see and audibly hear the breath of fresh air during our training sessions because of how easy it is to use. All they have to do is set up the content that they want to set up for their respective resource, service, event, group, etc. And it takes them all of about 30 seconds. And then they can go back to doing what they love doing, which is meeting with and serving students. And so I think that that's really, really important to face that reality. And I'm thankful that during the design partner phase of our development, we really heard that reality in this kind of echo chamber of many different diverse institutions saying the same thing. I think another factor of it is the fact that a lot of times when it comes to mobile apps and portals, particularly, the updates associated, not from a feature perspective or a release perspective, but from a content perspective, typically fall on one office. That office typically being central IT or central marketing and communications. Both of those offices and the people associated with them are really, really busy. They don't have time to change the word from to the within a specific piece of content via a change order or ticket from that respective office. And so those tickets pile up. And when those tickets pile up, the app becomes out of date. And if the app becomes out of date, then the relevancy and the value to the end user falls off of a cliff. And so we use and deploy what we call distributed management, whether that be through our own system or integrating with the HCM, so that if I'm the director of the career center, then I have the ability to edit and manage just my pieces of content. If you're the director of the academic advising center or the food bank or whatever it may be, then you have the ability to make those edits, or someone on your team does, from the palm of your hand or your laptop, rather than waiting a month for a minor change.
Yeah.
So I think that helps RahRah as a platform scale across the campus so easily. Historically, we've started with the first year experience, and over the course of a relationship that we have with our partners, we look up and we're touching every single corner of the student experience. And now today, we're facing, and actually I shouldn't say facing, but we're working with schools to not just manage the student experience from a mobile perspective and from a consumer-like perspective, but we're also helping with prospective student recruitment. We're feeding enrollment funnels. We're enabling enrollment funnels to go deeper. We're helping with alumni engagement. We're helping with employee engagement. The way that we see it is that every single college campus at the end of the day is a community. And that community has two sides. One is this very fluid, very diverse, and frankly, captive audience. They're either paying to be there, have paid to be there, or being paid to be there. And they have rights and access to the other side of the community, which is a fairly static set of services, resources, offerings, opportunities. And institutions are investing more money now than ever in those things. So the problem is the space in between. It's convoluted. There's web sprawl. It's just a web of confusion compared to especially what we experience on a day-to-day perspective in every other facet of life. And so our disposition and the value that we bring on the surface is just to make the space between smarter, simpler, and more relevant, leveraging some machine learning. If we do that really well, then that ends up being a tide that rises boats that can be all of the different challenges that higher ed is faced with solving.
So, I've got a lot of things running through my brain. When we think of student affairs, generally that's the department that might be overseeing or have the key component oversight for a student experience. So when we think of that, that's not necessarily the first division within the university or the college we think of when we think of in a world where we more routinely use phrases like digital transformation, common term we're using today. When you think about that and you think about connecting that to student affairs and a student experience, do you see that as a synergy or as a competing priority for those staff members?
Well, I think that comes down to our ability to earn trust. If we are seen as just another vendor trying to sell a point solution, then we are a competing priority. And it's our job to earn the trust of student life as well as central IT to display our effectiveness as an enterprise solution, but then look to our live customers and have them tell our prospective customers for us that, hey, we were live in 5 weeks and our students are using the heck out of it. We were live in 3 months and we had 20 different integrations at the enterprise level into this system, and our students are using the heck out of it. And so, again, I think that comes back to the patience that we deployed early on so that we could be in a place right now where CIOs care, frankly, more about moving to the cloud for their student information system or their ERP, or moving to a more enterprise level of CRM. That doesn't offend us. Those are really important factors, but those are 2, 3, 4, 5 year efforts that cost millions of dollars. And so for us to have the ability to genuinely and authentically say, hey, we can address the student experience in your students' hands while being integrated and do that in 3 months, I think is a very compelling value proposition to a time when student experience has never been more important. But a lot of people don't know how to truly implement that because it's so newly important. And that's because of the post pandemic. And I think from a student affairs perspective, unfortunately, it's my opinion that student affairs has been historically disrespected. If you take housing and residence life out, which is a revenue generator, maybe facilities and dining, student affairs doesn't get the respect that it deserves. I like to think about it from an hour by hour basis. 15 hours a week, a student is in the classroom. Every other hour of that student's day and week and life is student affairs responsibility, their well being, their safety, their connectiveness, all of these things, which are so critically important, not just to students, but to everyone. Student affairs has always done a great job of. And during the pandemic, they were tasked with essentially keeping institutions alive. And now that we see the great work that they did in 2020 and 2021, and even into 2022, we're at a place where everyone's paying attention to student life and the student experience. And that's really important. When we all went digital during the pandemic, there was an unfortunate secret that got out. And that is the fact that you could learn from anywhere. And so, what is the differentiating factor of campus X, Y, or Z? Yeah, it may be a little bit that faculty to student ratio, but it's the experience that you're providing. It is every cent of the tuition that you're paying and what all you are getting out of it. And it's a lot more than just a one line item on your resume. And it's a lot more than just what you learn in the classroom. It's everything outside of the classroom as well. And I think that's really important to highlight.
So the experience that you're providing at RahRah, let's talk about the role mobile plays in that. What does how does your tool work? I'm assuming it is primarily mobile because that's where most of our students are engaging digitally
Mhm.
through a mobile device. Is that how it's designed?
Yeah, so it's mobile first. It is a native mobile application that can be white labeled to any given institution. We see the mobile app as a digital front door, and so it should be
Mhm.
branded as accordingly with any of those institutions. But there is 100% design and feature parity to the web. A lot of companies that we compete with were web first and then try to cram everything into a mobile device and the user experience ends up being sacrificed. By being mobile first, we have this parity, and it's beautifully designed both on your phone as well as on your desktop or iPad or laptop or whatever it may be. Um, all the student has to do is download either RahRah or the white labeled version of RahRah, and they enter in their email. We're already integrated with the SSO, the SIS, the LMS, the CRM, a bunch of other systems as well. And we ask two simple questions: what are your needs and what are your interests? From there, in first use, we provide that immediate sense of belonging so that the student can thrive based upon what they want to do and need to do. From there, we observe those uses patterns, obviously in a very ethical way, so that we can start growing the student with the institution, so that we're not just enabling or instilling echo chambers for them to go down one lane their entire tenure of that given student experience.
So, I want to talk a little bit of a more detail on a use case. So let's think new student onboarding. We mentioned first year experience. So, in an ideal client world, how is a college university using RahRah to help improve that onboarding process?
Yeah, we've seen it live. Um, when we were rolling out to the University of Michigan with just their first year students, we went to orientation, and we could see and we spoke with these students that were clearly overwhelmed. And University of Michigan has one of the best student orientations in the nation, and so they do an incredible job. And so it is not their fault. It is the sheer amount of information and change that are coming at them at the same time. And so when we were able to tell them that, hey, there's this platform that has everything that you were told about today and everything that you've been told about in the emails for the last few months, and it's in one place and it's really easy to use and it's relevant to you, it was this visceral response where, we're being thanked, which I guess is why we get up in the morning, because we know that we're doing well by doing good.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's just that immediate kind of utility that they have. It's why we started the company in the first place. I was a kid that grew up in the west side of Chicago, and I ended up going to Oklahoma State, which caused some head scratching. I didn't even know what a cowboy boot was back in the day. Um, but the only reason that I went there is because my big sister went there. And day one in this new environment with cowboy hats and pearl snaps and Lord knows what else, I didn't know up from down. But I had my sister there to be able to say and pull me to the side and say, this is where this is. This is how this works. This is who you should talk to. This is what you'd be interested in. And she also kept me out of trouble, which is always good. But that's a privilege. A majority of students today don't have that privilege. They're first generation. And so we wanted to ask ourselves, how can we do what my sister did for me at scale? Because I thrived in the 4 years thereafter. And it all comes down to those conversations and those walks on campus. My sister, with my printed out schedule, was pointing at where I need to go. And
Yep.
so we do that, but we do it all digitally in an experience and medium that people expect, whether it be Gen Z, who 91% of their technology interactions are on their phone, or any of us. I use an app for everything nowadays. It's one of the reasons that we moved to a different CRM is because the mobile aspect of it was easier because we're always on the go.
Yep. So my next question, which I think you kind of answered that story, maybe we'll find out. So unique name to the company, RahRah. Where does the name come from?
So credit again goes to my sister.
That's what I thought. Yep.
But she's an entrepreneur as well, so I guess I followed in her footsteps in a few different ways. But when we were thinking about starting this company, one of the things that we realized, and frankly at the time I didn't realize how contrarian it was to say or build something in this light, was that no one was really talking about the student. Even in my consulting days, when we would do these technology gap assessments for different institutions, all of the conversation was about a different acronym, whether that be the SIS, the LMS, the SSO, the CRM, et cetera, which again hold a ton of value. But no one was talking about what the student experiences on the day-to-day basis, what the student wants on a day-to-day basis. And we felt as if that was a good opportunity to, plant our flag in the ground and say, hey, we're going to build a student first product. We're going to build something that students actually want to use. And they don't want to use a replica of Facebook that's isolated to their campus. And they don't want to use a mobile app that has thousands of different user paths and functionality. They want something that's easy, scalable, and relevant. And so that really formed at least the first half of RahRah. And when it came down to being student first, RahRah seemed to make sense. Obviously, it was my sister's idea, but it's catchy. It's kind of synonymous with the higher education space from a, I guess you could say, college fight song perspective. And admittedly, the trademark was available. And it's
That always helps.
well, you don't realize how really deeply embedded the word or words rah rah are in the American lexicon. There's songs that have it. Like one of my favorite songs or artists is Naughty by Nature, Hip Hop Hooray. Oh,
Yes.
they've got
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
song called Rah Rah. You hear it in movies, you hear it in TV shows, you hear it in just everyday language. And so it's something that made a ton of sense to us. And fast forward today, I think we coupled that name with a beautiful experience and an enterprise ability to integrate. And here we are 5 years later, still standing and doing good work.
Awesome. That's a great story. Well, Cooper, I want to thank you for carving time out to get together and share with us more about the story of RahRah, what you're doing to really help universities engage students as they onboard, as they work with um, the staff and faculty to really start to find their footing. Before we jump off, um, any new announcements, partnerships you want to toss out there for us?
Yeah, we've got a couple. And before I get into those, Mickey, thank you. I'm a
Yeah.
huge fan of the EdUp Network. I'm a huge fan of Kennedy and Co. I'm a huge fan of you, and just a huge fan of where higher ed is going in general. So when two people that are committed to the cause get together, whether it be on a podcast or on a Zoom or in person, it's always fun. So thank you for the opportunity. Um,
Thank you for agreeing to jump on with me.
Easy to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, from an announcement perspective, it's kind of three big things that we have working for us right now. One is we're really, really proud to have kicked off our work with New Jersey Institute of Technology. They just recently got ranked as the second best public institution in America and the 19th best overall institution. And so the leadership that NJIT has, the vision that they have both with us and outside of us is truly incredible. And in the work that we've done in the last couple of weeks since kicking off, it's clear why they've shot up the ranks so highly. Just an incredible, incredible institution. Um, Outside of that, we recently announced our partnership with the HES Consortium, which is at this point over 350 private colleges and universities. And so we're really looking forward to doing the good work with them in the name of the student experience. And the last thing that I'll say is we've got a pretty big update from a product perspective that's going to be, by the time that this airs, live, which essentially is going to allow schools to far more easier, sorry, I had to get that out, leverage RahRah. RahRah is an enterprise software company. There's an implementation involved, a sales cycle involved, which is great. But higher ed is a place right now where student experience matters, but it's big and it's somewhat hairy compared to other competing priorities. And we're in a budget constrained environment. And so we are essentially lowering the barrier to entry for enterprise level institutions to leverage the platform, for departments to leverage the platform, for individual colleges to leverage the platform, and do so at a lower cost with less restrictions on a monthly basis. So we're really, really excited to see where that takes us.
That's a great announcement. So, and I've followed some of the growth with NJIT, and it's really cool to see what they're doing. Um, you know, I'll close with this thought because you've mentioned a couple of times phrases like enterprise. We've talked briefly about point solutions, and in my mind, in my world, point solutions typically bring that easier, more flexible user experience. Enterprise brings that campus wide capabilities. And so, what you've described to me is the ease of point solution use with enterprise capabilities across campus. And that's not an easy thing to accomplish.
No,
So congratulations to you and your colleagues at RahRah. It's that's a phenomenal thing to do. And for everyone out there listening, watching, if you want to know more, you can visit Cooper online, rahrahlife.com. And I know you're also online at LinkedIn, so they can track you down there. And here's something really cool. If you're on, if you go to the site, check out the team, just hover over each person's picture and it'll flip to their, I assume, your favorite GIF for each person, which is really kind of cool to see.
yeah, they kind of describe our personality in a way. So yeah, it was a fun little thing that we did. Just figured we'd bring a little levity to a pretty serious challenge, which is the student experience.
Awesome. Well, Cooper, thank you again so much for joining me. Everyone, thank you for listening. Don't forget to like the episode, drop us feedback, let us know how we're doing. And until next time, we'll see you soon.